Hey guys, I'm Cameron and welcome back to The Driving Itch. Well, this week we're going to fix S197. In last week's video, well, we found out it was broken. So let me get into what's going on, but first, let me show you the new parts we're putting in. Ta-da! Here in a second, we'll go over how my previous RTR control arms left the chat and get them replaced with these new BMR Billet control arms. These are very lightweight. Can't wait to see what actually failed on the RTR control arm, but decided to switch it up and go with a different design. Hopefully not to have any future failures. All right, well guys, you may be asking, how did I discover this? Well, a few months ago, my friends and I went and ran the gauntlet. And not too long ago, there was an autocross event I wanted to attend, and I went to go start prepping the car for the day and noticed that one side of the car was sitting lower than the other. So, as you can see, this side is sitting at right a bit under 28.5 inches. And this side over here is sitting right at almost 29 inches. So there's about a ½ inch difference in height on both sides. The next thing I noticed is the diff was off center. So how did I measure that? Well, I looked here, right at 3 inches there. And then on this side, we were at 3.5. So what I found is my rear end is way out of whack. So I got underneath the car and noticed that one of my RTR control arms had thoroughly left the chat. Let me get underneath and show you. All right, so what did I get under here to discover? Well, let me try and show you. It's a bit hard with the car on the ground, but I wanted to make sure we could show it that way. As you can see on this side of the car, that control arm is nicely centered and in place. But if you come to the other side of the car, you can see here, this control arm is contacting the frame and has been rubbing against it. As you can see there. You can see a little to the left where you can see some scoring marks where the control arm has failed and the bushings left the chat. So let's get this thing pulled apart, see exactly what failed, and then get the car back on the road. Okay guys, let's start out by removing the broken one. I'm going to drop the rear part of it first, and then we'll move to the front. I wonder if it's under any tension. I should probably go ahead and cut that zip tie off. That is something you will have to do. I guess we're kind of getting control arm build here. So in order to do this right, you got 2 bolts and an e-brake line. If you're doing this for the first time, the factory forward ones, that handbrake line runs through the control arm, so you have to disconnect it up here. Luckily, I'm not dealing with that today. These are aftermarket. I replaced these probably 2.5 years ago, 3 years ago, 2.5 years ago, something like that. So they've lived a good life. I'm not really sure what the lifespan on these are, but it's definitely not the same as factory. So, yeah. All right, well, let's get these off and see what happens. I'll probably throw some new hardware in for these as well. It's always good if you have one of these Mustangs. They sell hardware kits for these if you work on it a lot because you're racing it or whatever. It's good just to have that on hand. I got one over there. Wow. All right. Okay, guys. So that's, I would argue, more concerning. So if you can see here, the bushing has actually not failed in here. What has failed is the press fit is not being pressed into place. It's coming out. The whole bushing assembly is physically coming out. Okay. Well, maybe someone at RTR will see this and can provide a better explanation of why that happened. That sucks. And why I had to spend a lot of money to get other control arms. That's crazy. That, and you got to see the frame damage. Actually, I'm not going to call that frame damage. If I ever sell this, it's not frame damage. All right, come check this out. You can see here, because of how that pressed bushing failed, it has been eating into the side of the control arm mount. Luckily, I don't think that's any permanent damage. Needless to say, it's not what you want to see. Ow! Oh, my knee. All right, so when you're putting this in, there's a left and a right. The taller side should face inside of this. And then you'll run this bolt through the back here and cinch it down on that back strap. And then, let's see it better from here. You put that brass spacer in, and then put those bolts in. And then there's this random spacer, which I didn't see mentioned in any of the videos online, so I thought I'd share with you. There's a threaded hole here, which on my car is, let's see, it's up there underneath that tab. It's rusty and there's a space, and so you're supposed to drop this little bushing spacer, whatever you want to call it, in there and then run this bolt in. I think I got bit by an ant. Alright, I'm not sure if you can see it or not, but that spacer right there, pain in the butt to get in. So, it goes there and that bolt goes there. And then that one's there, which I already showed you. And we tighten the paint hard bar back up. And then once I get it all back together, we'll torque it to spec. What a pain in the butt. Oh, alright. Well, now that the BMR lower control arm brackets are in, we get the BMR Billet lower control arms reinstalled. They definitely seem to be a little beefier than the old ones. And I don't think I have to worry about the inner race of that coming apart. And they're a little more serviceable. So anytime you get these, some people do different things. I like to lubricate all of this because no one likes lazy suspension. So we'll start by lubing up the tops and going from there. Well guys, I'm really happy with how that turned out and looked. Let's get the other side finished. I love the way the billet bars look. That's really cool. As well, let's knock out the other side real quick. Especially now that I've learned a thing or two from the other side. And get them away. very simple here. Alright, so moved. It's just crazy, guys. It's just crazy. Definitely a safety problem. Well, glad we're getting these replaced and getting some better ones put on. Start with this now that we know a little something better. Shouldn't be as big of a pain in the butt. Alright, y'all, I just spent the past few hours fighting with this, trying to figure it out, and as you can expect with prefab parts, sometimes you may need to clearance some things. So I had to clearance this hole by a few millimeters. So this mounts into this threaded hole here. And all up together on the car, there's no way I could get this all to line up. And then I thought, okay, maybe my rear end's out of alignment, so I pulled everything out and tried to line it up again with just the bracket. That didn't work either, same problem. So the bracket needed to be clearanced slightly. I clearanced it a few mil, and now it fits right in. So that is an update you should know about if you do this. You may have to clearance these to get them on right. All right, what's up you guys? And well, it's been a few weeks. As you saw in that video, I hurt my knee. And then it took me a few weeks to get the car's alignment figured out right. And as you can see, I've swapped the wheels off the S550 onto the 197 and ran a 285 square setup for this past weekend's Autocross. Got to do a thorough testing of the car and how it drives. And I'm gonna drop one of the videos from one of my runs. I was hoping to have more runs for you, but my camera overheated and it only recorded one, so we get to see that. And I'll try and do my best to describe what I'm seeing as we go through it and hopefully provide y'all some interesting content discussing how I feel about it. What I can say up front is the car drives way better, it rides way better, it turns way better. The rear end has far more grip, and with this new wheel and tire setup, it rotates and just generally feels much more lively. I think these wheels and tire, this wheel and tire stuff is going to stay here, and the wheels that were on this have been moved to the S550, and that just gives me an opportunity to find some cool wheels for that. One thing I will say I noticed, and it's probably going to be a sooner than later project, is I started losing second gear and higher RPM at this week's Autocross event. It's shifting fine at low RPM, so there's probably a transmission coming in the future for this car. So depending on how many of you subscribe today, we'll see how fancy I can get with it. All right, so let's get into reviewing some of this footage from the Autocross weekend. So you can see here, if you've ever competed in an Autocross event, you stage up here. I'm competing in a Triad Sports Car Club Autocross event at the Greensboro Coliseum. All right, we get a nice takeoff, and here I'm really getting into the gas. I'm really noticing a lot more rear end grip and my ability to tell and control where the rear of the car is. By coming on and off of the throttle, I'm able to rotate the car far better than I was. That sounds good. There's a lot less understeer than there was, but I say that, and as I come into this, I definitely overcooked this turn. And then able to quickly recover going through the slaloms. But braking control and ability to get the power down is far better than before. Normally in turns like this, I would be fighting with the rear end, but as you can see, it came through real tight. and finished out strong. So overall, I'm very happy with how this turned out. I'm excited to see more events I can go to and continue to improve my driver mod. Before all these modifications, I would say I was out driving the car. Now I have some improvements to make, and I met some really cool people while I was at this event, and I'm excited to learn from them as well and go to more. These tires are a 340 tread wear, and I was running a 300 on the Michelins, but they're a lot wider, so I'd say they kind of mapped out about equal. But I think I'm probably going to end up getting a set of 200 tread wears and then taking these tires and putting them on whatever wheels I get for the S550. Well, wonderful. Well, y'all, thank you so much for watching and enjoying this. I'm going to finish this out with a little devotional here. All right, time for today's devotional. We're going to be in Matthew 7, verses 15 through 20. I'm riffing off of Pastor James at the Pursuit Church Online's sermon he did this week. I really liked it, so I'm going to read the passages through this and then encourage you to go check out that video. I'll link it below. Beware of false prophets who come disguised as harmless sheep, but are really vicious wolves. You can identify them by their fruit. That is by the way they act. Can you pick grapes from thorn bushes or figs from thistles? A good tree produces good fruit, and a bad tree produces bad fruit. A good tree can't produce bad fruit, and a bad tree can't produce good fruit. So every tree that does not produce good fruit is chopped down and thrown into the fire. Yes, just as you can identify a tree by its fruit, so you can identify people by their actions. And all I have to say from the life I've lived is there's not a more true statement than that. Go check out Pastor James's video for a deeper dive on that really good sermon. And I think it's his most viewed video right now. So comment on that, ask him any questions you have, and maybe he'll make a video for it. Thank you all so much for watching, and I can't wait for the next video.